Well, it's all about Serena Williams at this point in time, and that's where we'll begin talking about the U.S. Open. In the women's singles category, just at the wee hours of today, you had Serena Williams progressing into the third round, knocking out second seed Annette Kontaveit in 3 sets, it must be said. Quite a difficult match, it must be said, for Serena Williams, but she pulled through convincingly towards the end of the match itself, talking about the deciding set. And you have to give credit to her 7-6, 7-4, 2-6, 6-2 that ended with Serena winning the first set in a very tiebreaker. And the second set, she dropped that before roaring back to win the deciding set by 6-2. She was definitely not short of support, both from the Patterson crowd at Arthur Ashe Stadium and, more importantly, at the players' box, where you had golf legend Tiger Woods also in attendance, supporting her, cheering her on. It was quite an emotional atmosphere. And talking about upset, it must be said that this is actually an upset, considering Annette Kontaveit is actually the second-seeded player when it comes to the women's singles. So the journey continues for Serena Williams. It's all about the fairway tour at this point in time. But on the court, the woman is definitely focused, and you have to give her credit for that. For Kontaveit, she just joins, other seeds who are falling out. By the way, talking about, other seeds who were also ranked going into this tournament. Well, let's move away from Serena Williams now, still talking the U.S. Open apparently, and seeds that have been knocked out of the women's singles draw. You had the third seed, Maria Sakkari, also knocked out of the competition, and that was a shock loss, it must be said. A big upset right there, because that was a result no one expected, and it came from China's 75th ranked player known as Wang Xinyu, who earned a 3-set victory over the third seed Maria Sakkari, 3-6, 7-5, 7-5. That ended a really epic clash in terms of how competitive it was, from both players. But at the end of the day, the Chinese knocked out the third seed. So just a few hours ago, you had the second and third seeded players in the women's singles draw being knocked out of the competition, and it leaves the draws wide open, especially for world number one Iga Swiatek, who fancy her chances of winning a second slam title this year, following our French Open triumph, which would definitely, culminate to a third Grand Slam for the world number one. Although we need to see her also progress through the ranks. It will be intriguing to see how that pans out. Well, still talking the women's draw in, at the U.S. Open, you had Tunisia's Ons Jabeur, who became the first Arab woman to win a Masters title, also progress into the third round. She did that convincingly, it must be said. And for Jabeur, there were no, concerns in the performance. It was just a straightforward victory, defeating Elizabeth Madik 7-5, 6-2 that ended. But she wasn't the only one. You had Coco Gauff, that's the French Open finalist, also earning a straight set victory 6-2, 7-6, 7-4 over Elena Gabriela Rus. Talking about, the young American there. Madison Keys as well made it a brilliant one as well for American tennis. 6-4, 5-7, 7-6, 8-6 that ended over Camila Giorgi. And for Coco Gauff, she'll be taking on our American counterpart, Madison Keys, in the third round of the competition. For Ons Jabeur, she'll be taking on Shelby Rogers in the third round. And these are definitely entertaining, clashes, it must be said, going into the third round. For these women, they'll be looking at bouncing back, especially for Ons Jabeur, who couldn't make it count at Wimbledon, losing the final to Elena Rybakina, who has since been knocked out of US Open yesterday. So the women's draws are definitely bringing up the upsets in terms of seeded players being knocked out, but in the men's draws, the big guns are still standing. And it's onto the men's singles draws we go now, and it has to do with Andy Murray. That's where we start from. Andy Murray, the former world number one, who won his maiden slam title right here at the US Open 10 years ago, also progressed into the third round, and he did that in 4 sets, 5-7, 6-3, 6-1, 6-love that ended against Emilio Nava, the 20-year-old who posed a bit of a challenge in the first set before Andy Murray stamped his authority. Now, this is the first time Andy Murray is making the third round at the US Open since 2016. So it's been 6 years in the making. I remember for the former world number one, is battled with multiple injuries and surgeries, from your hip injury to back injuries down to hamstring, foot injuries, among others. So it's great to see him make the third round of the U.S. Open since 2016. It will be intriguing to see how that pans out. Well, but it's not only Murray. You also have Nick Kyrgios as well, who is through to the third round. He also progressed in 4 sets. And for Nick Kyrgios, despite the legal challenge he has back home in Australia, the Australian Maverick is making it count when it comes to on-court focus. 7-6, 7-3, 6-4, 4-6, 6-4 over France Benjamin Burns. That ended, for Nick Kyrgios, making it through to the third round as well. And it was a match that had so much of brilliance from, Nick Kyrgios, firing 30 aces and also winning the final 9 points of the game, or of the match rather, to book his place in the third round. He will be taking on J.J. Wolf in the third round, and it will be intriguing to see how he's able to, match up with J.J. Wolf. For Andy Murray, he has it more difficult, talking about, facing the 13th seed, Matteo Berrettini. That's the former Wimbledon finalist, and I'm sure that's a matchup everyone will be looking forward to, talking about Andy Murray against Matteo Berrettini in the third round, while Nick Kyrgios similarly has it easier, taking on J.J. Wolf. Well, let's move away from there now and talk about Eurobasket. Yes, that's the basketball championship for European teams. The 2022 edition, as I said, begins today. In fact, it has begun because the first match of the tournament, that's between Spain and Bulgaria, began about 40 minutes ago. There were about 12:30 that match began, and the Eurobasket 2022 is definitely one to watch out for. The defending champions, Slovenia, will be in action this afternoon. They will be taking on Lithuania by 2:15. Let me just run you through the list of matches we have as quickly as possible. I talked about the opening match. There you have the draws and the various groups right there on your screen. You have Group A, where you have Romania, Poland, Israel, Spain. Group B has Italy, Macedonia, Estonia, Russia, but Russia has been expelled from the tournament, and you have other groups there as well. So the matches itself, you have Spain against Bulgaria, which, as I said, has begun, started 12:30. You have Slovenia, the defending champions, beginning their title defense against Lithuania, and that's by 2:15. You have Bosnia-Herzegovina as well, playing today. Do not forget Turkey. You will also be playing against Montenegro, Belgium against Georgia, and France against Germany. That's something to watch out for later this evening. France against Germany will be 7:30 p.m. And for basketball lovers, it is the time to see the various NBA stars represent their nations. Now, let's look at the favorite teams, talking about assessing those who are the favorites. For Slovenia, they are the defending champions, and they would fancy the opportunity to make it back-to-back wins. They won their solitary gold medal at the last edition, which was 5 years ago. The basketball championship used to be 2 years ago, every 2 years rather, but that was changed to every 4 years, making it look like the World Cup format, talking about the FIFA World Cup. This edition should have taken place last year, but due to the pandemic, COVID-19 issues, it had to be moved to this year. So Slovenia will go in as defending champions and look to fancy their chances. You have Serbia, who has the back-to-back MVP for the NBA, talking about Nikola Jokic. In that they were champions, they were the finalists rather in 2017 and 2009. So they'll be looking to earn their first championship title. Slovenia, defending champions, as I said earlier, will be looking to make it back-to-back. You have Greece. Yes, that's a nation that is a powerhouse when it comes to European basketball. They've been champions twice, in 1987 and 2005. They would also fancy their chances of going through in terms of making it a third championship title. Remember, the Greeks have Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's the Milwaukee Bucks star, including his brothers. The only challenge they have is the supporting cast. How much of support will the Antetokounmpo brothers have? That's the big question for the Greeks. But should Giannis get going, then they will definitely fancy the chances of getting the gold medal. You have France as well in the mix. They will be taking on Germany later this evening, but France are, were the 2013 champions, I beg your pardon. They were the 2013 champions, and they would also be looking at making it another run for the title. Lithuania, who will be taking on Slovenia, the defending champions, later this afternoon, are also three-time champions, last winning the title in 2003, having won it in 1937 and 1939. So Lithuania is also a force to reckon with. It will be interesting to see how this pans out. It is the 41st edition of the Eurobasket, and it's taking place from September 1st to September 18th. May the best team win. And for Slovenia, they'll be banking on, Goran Dragic as well as Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks to help them keep their title.